everyone, my name is Claire Moses. I'm going to be doing a teaching unit that I titled All About the Persistence of Memory. I titled it this because the piece I'm using for these is called The Persistence of Memory by Salvador Dali, and this would be taught to 5th graders. So I'll go ahead and get right into it. The first mini lesson I would do would be Social Studies and Art History, and I would introduce the piece by explaining that Salvador Dali was around in 1920 to 1950, and he was a surrealist painter from Spain. He became an artist shortly after his mother passed away, and at this his first exhibition he showed this piece, and this piece was actually painted in 1931, which was in the middle of the Great Depression. And so the standard I'd be using is the students will explain how the Great Depression and New Deal affected the lives of million Americans. And my objective would be to relate the Great Depression in America to the Great Depression in Spain, and they will see how this painting relates to the Depression. The lesson I would use, like an abbreviated version, I would show the clocks appearing to be melting, and that this resembles happy memories fading away, and how this is how people felt during the Depression. And students would be researching the Great Depression in both the U.S. and Spain and how it affected the citizens, and explain how this piece relates to this. The next lesson I would use is based on language arts and aesthetics. So I would introduce the painting, and the 3 aesthetics questions I'd be using was, do you think this is real art? Do you think Salvador Dali is a real artist? And do you think surrealism should be recognized as a real form of art? So the language arts standard I would be using would be 5th grade writing. And this says, write opinion pieces that include organizational structures of logically offered reasons, linking words, and concluding statements. So the objective would be to write a persuasive essay on their own opinions for the above question, explain to the board why this piece should be classified as real or not. An abbreviated lesson would be explaining the painting and explaining what aesthetics are. From there, I would explain the assignment to the students and allow them to write this in class. And the assessment instructions, I would have them write a 1 to 2 page letter to this quote-unquote board explaining why they think that this should be classified as real art or not. And the next lesson I would do would be math and art criticism. And in this lesson, I would introduce the painting and discuss 4 art criticism questions, which would be, what is the first thing you see in this picture? Describe what is happening in this piece. Judge the artwork. And why do you think he chose clocks? The math standard I would apply it to would be apply and use understanding of multiplication to multiply a fraction or whole numbers by a fraction. And I would use this by having the students pick 2 clocks and determining the time on the clocks, and they're going to turn that into a fraction. So, for example, if it said it was 3:45, that would be equal to 3 3/4 of an hour, and from there they would multiply the 2 times selected. And students will tell time as they select and what they got, and this would be used as an accuracy check. The next lesson would be science and art project. So the introduction would be, I would introduce the painting and ask the students to identify the surface features that are presented in this image. The standard would be obtain, evaluate, and communicate information to identify surfaces, features on the earth caused by constructive or destructive processes. And the objectives would be identify the lakes and the mountains, and they will explain how these will form. For example, the plates moving together would form the mountains. And an abbreviated science lesson would be pointing out in the painting an image which would connect to the science standard and briefly describe the classroom lesson. And then the assessment is the students would write a paragraph explaining what happens to the earth to create a mountain or a lake. And then for my last one, if I wanted to do a lesson extension or an art project that demonstrates creativity, the objective would be the students will create a surrealism piece, and the student would have to look up some more surrealism pieces so they could understand what it really is, because just from the one piece they wouldn't truly understand surrealism. And then students would use oil pastels, and they would need to include surrealism and then emphasis elements, principles of art. And the student would complete the piece, and within the artwork it would need to resemble surrealism. And that's it. Thank you.